Do you know the difference between a grassroots movement and a psychological created movement? Can you tell when you're thinking something, or if it's just the thoughts someone else has for you? Can you tell the difference? We're at a point where people are having a type of discourse in the world. It's the politics, it's the food. These are the things I keep my mind on. It's about science or vaccines. It's about history and historic revisionism. But do you find yourself wondering, like I'm wondering, how much of this is just part of the dialogue that we're supposed to be having with each other? Instead of talking about things that might matter a bit more. For example, how about we, instead of fighting over the dinner table about politics or saying this person should do that with their life or that person should do that, and having all kinds of discussion about things that don't really even matter to a large degree. I'm starting to see every little field as just a play box, a sand ground for the mapping out of your mind so that they can better control you on things that may be more directly related to a life, your genes, passing them on. Now, is that the highest thing? Well, no, not necessarily, but it necessarily must be a thing. Otherwise, you can't have dialogue, you can't have experiences if there's nothing living there to experience it. To have these conceptions and perceptions that we do of the world. So here we are in an information age, and we're knowing a bunch of things, we're let to know things. But we don't know how to do much of anything. We don't know how to do laundry without detergents. You know, we don't know how to make our own soap. We don't know how to make candles. We don't know how to make a sword or a rifle. We don't know how to make a shovel. We don't know how to plant things if you're into that desperate state of eating. We don't know how to rear animals well and practice good breeding and husbandry. We don't know how to manufacture cars and things like this. We shouldn't be so isolated that all these things seem tough or mysterious. You know, isolated from each other, isolated, subdivided, specialized. I do this as a job, but then I get home and I do something else and that defines me more. You know, even that mentality of working and coming home, it's just the mind desperately trying to establish some type of equilibrium between your life and the unfortunate circumstances that you wish weren't your life, like going to work every day at the job you don't like. Because our lives have been fractured. That's what happens when you have an economy that's all divided and isn't aligned with your values, isn't aligned with the family, isn't aligned with property ownership. Because then you'd have a bunch of businesses on land, which is owned by the people. And then you'd have people working for you, and family stuff going on, or good friends. And the whole mind has been compartmentalized, and it's the same thing with everything we look at. These algorithms are training our mind to just be focused on one thing and only one thing. Or a cluster of similar things, and then your mind's stuck on that too. So you think you're becoming an expert on something, and you're interested in it, and you're learning all about it, but you may be living in a world of algorithms, algorithmic determination. I'm a bit of a determinist, it's true. But I think the things that determine us are, well, mostly choices about breeding, and that may seem like I'm using the contradictory words there, determinism and choice, but I do think as humans we have the ability to determine algorithms for ourselves, and mostly those algorithms, the way we run our mind, if we're conscious enough, we can affect that in our dreams and everything. That will have more of an effect, right? Those decisions. But ultimately, this is genetically determined, so you can select for certain threads, you can correct these ways of thinking and operating, but there's still, a thing onto themselves, and once you get certain circuits going, then it takes a lot of time to get them going back. And sometimes they never go back, like if you decide to take a lot of drugs and things. Or, in some cases, if you're like me and you had a very nutrient deficient diet for a few years, my mind's changed. Not as steady. It's a lot steadier than it was on a vegetarian diet, but some things in me are still needing patching, you could say. So here I am, faced with a peculiar balance between having more information at our fingertips and being able to see the world in a little bit of a different light. But then the trade-off is your mind becomes even more broken off, more specialized. Your lives start to become like that. You get into your things, and then you only want to talk to people who are into your things. And you don't just want to talk to people because you have some bond, or you recognize the importance of like a community feeling, and talking to people who don't agree with you, and this type of thing. And then another thing is you're less likely to find people who agree with you. Because now you have a million different ways to come up with a million different opinions. And now your populations are more diverse too, Families typically think alike. People who are genetically similar tend to think more alike than people who aren't. And now we have people who just go all over, within races and then other races on top of it. It's like you move every 3 or 4 years, a lot of people do, especially young professionals. They're always moving. Roots can't find no ground. And I think there's something to be said for really learning environment well and how you interface with it. Somebody who's lived somewhere in the hills for 80 years, they probably know a bit more about how to do life there than and people going forth and going back and this and that, and the same force that's driving people around the country is going to be determining their experience of it, their perception of the places. Because you become conditioned. You go to certain stores, your income bracket will keep you with certain people. You may think you're fancy and you want to eat a certain type of food. Where pretty much all the food in this country, forgive me for saying, it's just complete crap. There's no good quality anywhere. Maybe if you know people who raise their own animals or something like that, but even half the time of that is no good. Doing something yourself doesn't guarantee that it's going to be nutrient dense. And doing something on an industrial level doesn't guarantee that it's not going to be. It just kind of all depends on what those animals are eating in their environment. It's the same thing for crops. You can pay for an organic beet that tastes like cardboard. I guess that's all I'm saying. I hope you can start to piece together that your mind is being terraformed, my mind's being terraformed, and I think one way to try to combat that and recognize what's going on with your insides and the depths of your mind is to look at different things and maybe watch videos or read articles that aren't what you think about or something you're not even interested in. I know it sounds kind of weird, but you start to see patterns that way. You start to see links, and really what I'm thinking now is that they don't want people who can see everything in a context. More than anything, they don't want people who can do that. Because then you reduce everything to common denominators, and then you can take appropriate action that applies no matter who you are, no matter where you are. The thing you can't do in this world is do anything which affects the economy. You can think things about vaccines, you can talk about the flat earth, you can talk about race differences and everything else, but when it comes down to it, you have to kind of get in your body and use your eyeballs and look around you and ask yourself the question, what is it that I can do to improve my life and those around me? And that's not an easy question, but the more you increase your knowledge, the more simple things you come to be thinking about of doing. And at this stage of development, I think the important thing is to support small businesses. If you know people who make real things with their own time and who source their ingredients or their materials well or whatever, you start to support those people. I'd say that's a terrific thing to do. Because there's something we gotta realize is that the people that rule over us, we give them the right, we give them our power. We hate on money, but we spend our money at the stores and everything else. And yeah, I'm in that situation right now, but I've had a taste of being out of it on the land and whatnot. And even being back on the land, some people think that's the ultimate solution, but not everyone's going to do that. So I think for now it's just start holding on to your money, giving it to people who are real, who have values that you value as well, and then going from there. Maybe start being self-employed yourself. Maybe, try to get some small trade going. And I don't necessarily mean barter, but I just mean working with people in your environment who are around you, ideally with materials that are around you. Because people are craving that. There's a backlash that's coming up against the corporations, the one-size-fits-all manufacturing, this plate looks the same as that plate, looks the same as that one in 39 states at Walmart. You know what I mean? Like, I just get that sense. I don't know what's going to happen, and take it for what you will, but there's going to be a backlash, and small businesses are going to start doing a bit better here. So, I guess that's my advice. It's not esoteric or anything, but the world of the internet, the world we start living in our heads, start piecing together around us. It's good to evaluate life and know these things, but it's also good to support people because they have a life and they have an inner experience the best we know. And I'd rather do that than some lifeless corporation. But, it's deeper than that. It's deeper than just business and money and starving out these big companies. It's just having enough life force in you to be creative, to have your own business, to have enough consideration to respect the other people that are doing that. And then you have values which are being cultivated because of the experiences that you're having. You're dealing with a real person, not a company. You're going to be a lot more honest. You're cultivating honesty. You're making something for a person, and you've talked to them a bit, and it's not like some big company where you're faceless or something. It's like you're going to have an interaction with us, and they're going to love it or they're not, and it's going to make some type of difference. So now you have work ethic. You have integrity. You're developing your art in a way you wouldn't if you're just at some job you don't care about, making stuff for people you're never going to see. So we have to realize that terraforming the mind, like how it's going on, isn't bad. Which is why these people can get away with it, because, it's happening, it's benefiting some people, it really is. There's people out there who don't get bugged in their soul when they walk into a Walmart. They exist, and they're the majority. So I can't, condemn these things universally. It's just the fire in my soul wants to rip apart, these institutions. But I realize that's not everyone. But everyone is, as far as I know, a biological machine. And just as these forces have programmed us, and we're affected by them, some people may not like to admit that, but we are. Even just subliminally, all these ads and stuff, you don't have to be looking at them and your mind's being perverted and twisted in so many ways. You're thinking about the seasons differently just because they've done seasonal advertising. You don't know what's going on. It doesn't matter. It's happening to you. You're in the system. So we've got to start terraforming our own minds by making structures economically which cultivate certain values, which will then lead to greater societal change. We've got to realize that it's not just some people doing stuff to us, it's us doing stuff to us. And we can't just condemn the technique, because it's working, isn't it? Working real good. So we've got to start applying that to us. We've got to start making the conditions, the environment, so that we're transformed into people we want to be. And we start to then have momentum and make a space for the societies we want to live in. It's the type of thinking before you reach for an equation. It's what can I do to understand this problem instead of looking for solutions? What is the problem? Like I made a video about that. Everyone's thinking, what's the problem? What's the problem? You're looking for equations before you understand dynamics and what equations you need to be looking for. Or you're looking for building materials before you've made a blueprint, or before you've analyzed the type of soil and the resources of the environment. You know what I mean? The climate and everything. You're in your head and you're building a fortress. But you haven't seen if there's clay nearby, or if there's lots of sand, or how far you have to dig to hit bedrock, or the frost line, or these types of things. You haven't looked into that. So, the mind is moldable, and we've been given by the Creator a gift which a lot of the forces driving the things in the world don't have. And that's the ability to reflect and to adjust our own algorithms, to form our minds ourselves to a degree. And through creative abilities, through our crafts and industrialness, we begin to form the environment, which then cultivates the results we want in our phenotypes and our expression. So I hope you kind of start to see the world a bit like that. I hope I'm persuading you to first understand how YouTube and Facebook and all these things are changing the interconnectivity of our brains. And I'm not immune to none of this. And then we take the fatherly sense of putting ourselves in a situation where we have to learn again how to be human. Thank you for listening.